this team does have a lot of question marks. They're a young team, but Chris Paul is obviously the biggest one. He has, if he opts into that final year of his contract, the Suns will be only $12 million or so below the luxury tax line. There's a good chance they go over. They have a lot of question marks with what to do with people like Dario Saric. He'll probably be out next season. Torrey Craig, campaign. And there's a good chance Chris Paul opts out and he's going to go and try and find money somewhere. I mean, he finished 5th in MVP voting. Why wouldn't he go and get paid somewhere else? So, and he wants to win now. We were talking about win now mentality. What about somewhere like the Lakers, who definitely have made it clear that they want a veteran point guard? Thomas Aiello, I'm not even going to finish my point because I would love to hear what that reaction was for.
Stop. There. Stop bringing up the Lakers.
It's not me. It's the news loves it. That's all I see.
Okay. Well, guess what? The Twitter is fake news. All the Lakers fans are fake news. They're all banned. Well, I can't even speak. Who in their right minds thinks the Los Angeles Lakers need Chris Paul to walk through Rudy Gobert and Damian Lillard, who doesn't ever get past the second round except once, and they need Chris Paul to be that magic passing X factor when you have LeBron. Stop it. He's not going to leave Phoenix. He's not going to leave. He's not going to the Lakers. He's not going to the Knicks. He's going nowhere. He's going to stay. He's going to decline the player option. He's going to take. I think he personally should take a pay cut if they want to add talent to this team. Chris Paul should take a pay cut. Going to the Lakers is just it's an asinine idea because they're going to spend money on Dennis Schroeder because he's one of their only options at point guard. They have to pay Kuzma $13 million for some reason. And Montrezl Harrell, I mean, he might leave, but that's $9 million freed up from a player option. And then Caldwell Pope makes $13 million to shoot 30% from three. So, I mean, Chris Paul going to the Lakers, it would be hilarious to come full circle with that trade all those years ago. But stop. Not everyone's going to play in La La Land. There's a reason it's called La La Land. It's all a fantasy. It's not going to happen. Yes, they got Davis. Yes, they have LeBron. And they didn't really win a real championship, but they won something. And then this year they were all hurt. And I don't know how much I can put that on them. It's not really everyone else's fault. It just happens. Injuries are part of the NBA, but he's not going to the Lakers. He's not going to these outrageous teams that people on Twitter say, the seven people like me that say Chris Paul should go to the Timberwolves. I just picked the crazy team because that's just what I do, but he's not going to leave Phoenix. There's no better situation for him to leave Phoenix or that will entice him to leave. And Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are going to be around. That he's not going to leave Phoenix. And I keep repeating it, but it's not going to happen. Twitter needs to be deleted, or burned to the ground, something.
Burned to the ground. Thomas Aiello wants Twitter burned to the ground. You heard it.
Burn it.
Really, I guess you go for the data center at Twitter or something.
I don't know. I should honestly just burn my phone. That'll be enough. That will be enough
for you. Yeah.
Enough.
Well, so here's my question: If Chris Paul's not going anywhere, then let's look at this Western guy. The Lakers, right? They were injured, but they're going to be healthy again, and clearly they couldn't overcome Giannis and the Bucks. The Clippers and Nuggets, they might not be healthy on opening night, but by the time we get to postseason, I think they're definitely going to be contenders there. You never know what other teams are coming back. Like I mentioned earlier, Brooklyn was a shoe size away from being in this finals, and I think that big three definitely would give Phoenix a run for their money. So what should the Suns go out and do in this offseason? I mean, you have Ayton, who stepped up. I know he didn't have a great game 6, but he definitely took huge strides in the offseason. Mikal Bridges, your guy, Thomas Aiello, he's stepped up. He could also go out and get a contract. In an ideal world, you're right. They keep Paul, they keep Ayton, and they keep Bridges together, and they make another run at it next year. But I don't know how realistic that is. Quigley, what should the Suns do moving forward? Do they try and keep this team together and make another run at it, or do they go out and try and find that missing piece, that one player who's going to move the needle?
that's the question with the Suns, because obviously they're a rising team, and even without Chris Paul this season, they probably would have been a playoff team in my estimation. But Chris Paul brings that absolute X factor to the team, and that's kind of why I think he won't leave. And if he were to leave, I don't think he would go anywhere other than the Lakers, but he won't. He'll stay. But this Suns team is obviously on an upward trajectory, and they don't really have many weaknesses that aren't going to be solved with at least a decent maturation process, and obviously like skills improving for the current core that they have. So I don't necessarily think that there's any moves that absolutely jump out to me that will make them more of a contender. But I do think this is going to be a very tough West to come out of in any other year. I think they got really fortunate this year to be in the position that they were, because they had, teams like the Nuggets that they just absolutely swept, but, they're without one of their best players. And, the same goes for an injured Lakers team that they ran into. So they definitely were fortunate this season, and they didn't have to play Kawhi in the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference Finals either. I think they're going to be there. They're always going to be contenders. If Chris Paul can stay around, play like he has been for at least 2 more years, they have a championship window. But it's just going to be really tough in the West. And I don't necessarily know, how they can better prepare themselves for it.
I agree. I do think the West is going to be tough for next year. And Chris Paul, love and death, I really thought this needed to be the year for him. I know we say this. I'm a Tom Brady fan, so I cannot believe I'm about to say what I'm about to say. But he is old. He's getting older. And I don't know how many more years you're going to get out of him where he plays at the level that we saw him play this year. Maybe I'm setting him up to get mad, use that as a chip on his shoulder and play really well next year and win a championship, because that's exactly what Tom Brady does every time someone says that about him. But it's true. I mean, he's getting older, and there's a good chance that, like I mentioned earlier, some of the younger players get swooped up in the offseason by teams looking to do the same thing that the Suns just did and have a young core and build off of that. So I really do think it's going to be interesting next season. Thomas Aiello, I'm sure you had thoughts on that as well. What do you think I guess this might be way too early to talk about, but what do you think the Suns' odds are going into next season with the team they have now in going into, a playoff series, a postseason?
I think you said it very well, Kelly. I think it's tough to judge. I thought the Brady analogy to describe where Chris Paul is at is definitely like a conversation to be had, because he is 36 or 37, something like that, in that vicinity. And the West there's a lot of teams that are either going to try to make the jump or are going to jump out of nowhere. We can't, like you said, you can't count on the Lakers to just not be healthy. The Clippers might be the one team everyone leapfrogs, because Kawhi is probably going to miss most of next season with that knee ailment. Dallas, they hired Jason Kidd, so they kind of set themselves up for doom. And Bob, who was a Twitter guy who apparently is going to run their front office, so good luck to them. So maybe you can leapfrog 2 teams. But Denver, like you said, they're going to be around. Portland is up in the air. We don't know what they're going to do. But teams like Memphis, New Orleans, San Antonio, if they pick up someone, and Oklahoma City can magically just show up. Those are teams that have a lot of assets and things they can trade to improve the team like this. And for the Suns, I mean, they really need a backup point guard. They can get it, but the question becomes, how much are you willing to give up to maintain the top 2 in the West? That's the real question, and what it comes down to.